Hey, what's going on? And welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Your host, Thomas Keenan, coming at you today. Final few days here in the home office in Prosper, Texas. That's a whole other story. We'll dive into at a later date. But I've got Donavin Kinser here with me on today's show. Been bumping into this dude here for a couple of years, and he's in the solar industry. Guy's got a book. He's got his own company now at this point, and is projected to do some pretty rad numbers as far as sales are concerned. I figured it'd just be a good idea to come in here and have a conversation, get to know you a little bit more, and see how through just a genuine conversation between two dudes, how we could potentially go out there and help the listeners, and maybe they could take some of this away and go implement it in their own lives and just become a better human, better person, better father, and whatever that may be, and go from there. Welcome, man.
Thanks. Appreciate for you having me on here. I look forward to having a conversation with you, man. I've been watching you for some time now, and I really value you as a mentor. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's funny. We got this rule, and it's like, hey, you start to get a little active and put your voice out there a little bit on social media for whatever your intentions and purposes are, is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. But when you do this, unbeknownst to you, you typically have an audience of people who look up to you, and you don't know who they are at all the times. So it's like, even if people aren't liking, commenting, engaging on your content, doesn't necessarily mean that they're not watching you.
100%.
Right? And that's, I kind of feel that way with our relationship here. Is like, you tell me, I hop on this call with you a couple minutes ago, and you're like, oh yeah, man, I've been following you. Awesome. I had no idea. Right. And this is also one of those things where it's like, just because you can't see the result, the tangibility of the results, don't stop doing the work. And I had trouble with that when I transitioned from blue collar work, right? I was a car stereo installer for 20 something years, right? Working my hands all day long, built custom enclosures and custom trunks, like just worked. Like you'd go into the shop, you put a hard day's work in. At the end of the day, there was a tangible result. You could step back and say, oh, look what I did today.
Right.
Whereas when you're building the business, you're implementing structure, systems and processes, you're doing marketing, social media marketing, or whatever it may be. Oftentimes you can't see the result. It's not tangible. It may impact the bank account 60, 90, 180 days from now, but it may not be this tangible result come the end of the day. And I think that's a turnoff to a lot of people, especially people who are coming from a blue collar space and getting into entrepreneurship, because they don't see the end result at the end of the day. And it's like, well, I'm doing all this hard work, but there's nothing to show for it. Stop telling yourself that bullshit. You got to keep pushing forward, and it will show up. You just gotta stick with it.
Yeah, 100%, man. I've been in the industry now, for the solar industry specifically, for 5 years now. And that's a lot of it, like a lot of people that are in the industry, they sell about 2 accounts a year. Yeah. And that's pretty standard for the average American income. People fall in the averages.
It's like real estate, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you sell 1 or 2 houses a year and you're good to go, and then you're like, well, shit, now I got to pay for lock boxes and signs, and I have to pay for a VA and emails and business cards and then you're left with like 30 grand, and you're like, damn, I could have did that at a 9 to 5. Like, why am I busting my ass working 70 hours a week? And then you remember that it's exactly that, spend time with your kids, spend time with yourself, get yourself better mentally. I think oftentimes that financial burden that a lot of us happen to be carrying around as average Americans, most people don't have $1,000 to pay for an emergency expense, so it's like, how do I fix this when I can't fix my wallet, And so that's what I love about entrepreneurialism.
Yeah. You know what, man? From real world experience of myself, the wallet is directly attached to the mental health and stability, in my opinion.
100%.
If you've got trouble in the financial area, it's going to fuck with your mindset.
Yep.
And it's almost counterintuitive. In order to fix the financial shit, you have to fix the mindset, right? Like, you got to go do the work on you. And if you don't, like, you're never going to fix the financial problem. But if you ignore the financial problem, it's just going to be this revolving circle of bullshit that's going to spin you down and spin you out faster than you can say hello.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a lot of friends that I've started to surround myself with that have a lot more money than I do. Mm-hmm. That was the first place that I started. Is I don't have any money, and I was like, I got to get around people that have money. Like, that's first and foremost the most important thing. Because people that have money look at life differently.
Oh, they 100% do.
They see time differently. Time is not linear to them. Time is now, in the past, and in the future, all at the same time. And people that have $100 million are a lot more present than somebody that wants $100 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very valid. And it's also important that, you know, like I probably said it a fucking 100,000 times in this show, but I'll say it again because it's that important. You have to be aware of who's in your circle.
Yes.
And you have the ability, you have a choice with whom you allow in your circle. Right. And one of the things I have conversations with my clients all the time, and this is the worst fucking exercise on the planet. And I've talked about it on the show before, but I'll say it again in case someone hasn't gone back and listened to 30 other episodes. I got this exercise that I've done with myself and I put it together. I learned it from another coach that I had hired several years ago. And I call it the stoplight game. Like I took his version of it and I modified it a little bit, made it mine. Just the way I do things. So I call it the stoplight game. Right. And basically pull out a pen and a paper, pull out your iPhone, whatever the fuck you're more comfortable with is irrelevant to me. But take some information, do a complete brain dump, and list out every single person who's in your life right now. Right?
Okay.
It could be 50 people, it could be 75, could be 100, could be whatever. Like whoever it is, just think about it. Close friends, family, mom and dad, brothers and sisters, you know, cousins, aunts, friends, kids you grew up with from high school. People you work with, clients, like whoever is in your circle and you interact with or involved with throughout the course of a year, right? Write down their name. And then we're going to play the stoplight game. You're going to give them a red, a green, or a yellow. And the way that we determine what they're going to get is, hey, the question you ask is, okay, I see the name. The name here is, let's call it, you know, Bob Jones. Is Bob Jones, when he shows up and has a conversation or an interaction with me, is he negative 50% of the time or more, or is he positive 50% of the time or more? And if he's negative, homeboy gets a red light. If he's positive, he gets a green light. And if he's in the middle, it's kind of obvious, he gets a yellow light. Right? So after we do this entire exercise, the hard part comes. Now we go and we have to basically clump all these red lights together. And then you've got to be intentional with eradicating those people from your life. That's the hard part. Right. And when you start doing this stuff and you start realizing some of the names that go on that list, you're like, damn, really? Ouch. Like that's someone that I care for. And yeah, you might love these people, but the time spent with them is not good for you. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your forward trajectory or your maybe they don't have an abundance mindset like some of the winners that you want in your circle. Right. And you have to be very conscious and very willing. I'm not saying to cut them out of your life completely. Right. Because, like, for instance, there's certain people that I've gone through with this exercise, like, hey, they're a red light, but I am not willing to remove that person from my life fully. I will distance myself. I will slow down interactions. I won't see them as frequently, but I'm not going to just be a cold-hearted fucker and cut them completely.
Yeah.
Right? You start doing that stuff because this is the work that no one ever talks about. This is the work that I should say no one, very few are willing to do this level of work. Right. But if you go out there and you do this, like I guarantee you that your circle will change. It will change rapidly and your forward progress. And I'm not just saying in a business or a financial sense, because that's part of it, but your forward progress as a human being overall, all the important areas of life is going to take an upward trajectory very quickly if you do this work.
I love that.
Yeah. Let's talk about solo, man. Like how the hell did you get into the solo game?
Well, before we step into that, one point that I would like to make in regards to what you're talking about there is it's often overlooked that you should take a look at yourself and see if you are a red, green, or yellow light. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, they have a hard time with identifying where they are at the stoplight. You know, a lot of people run red lights and they really shouldn't. A lot of people think that they can squeak by through a yellow light, hoping that they'll make it to the other side and then find themselves in a T-bone crash, you know? Yeah. And so, like, a lot of people, they think they're a green light. They think that they are surrounded by green lights and they think everybody else is a red light around them. Meanwhile, they are the number one red light. And it's difficult to come to terms with that for a lot of people. And I think that's where a lot of people fail in entrepreneurialism. They think everybody's problem is theirs and none of their problems are their own. And it's hard to like sit there and chew on that and be like, you're the fucking problem, bro.
Yeah.
You're the problem.
Yeah. The way I like to pose that, and this is internal and external, right? If you have a friend who seems to just go through relationships or goes through jobs or whatever it may be, it's like after a couple of these interactions that you see from a distance, and this could also be inward reflecting on you too, by the way, you have to ask yourself, okay, in all of those situations, what's the common denominator?
Yep.
And most times it's the individual that you possibly know or yourself. Right. So if you're a person here who keeps running through jobs, you can't hold a job. Oh, that boss sucks. They didn't set me up properly. They didn't set me up or give me a CRM. They didn't pay me well enough. Oh, the drive was too much. But shut the fuck up with that bullshit, because you're the fucking problem. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a tough pill to swallow. But the same thing applies. And this is what I noticed too, man. You audit that circle. You go through that stoplight game. You have a higher level of people you're interacting with now. What I found is when I did that, and I had people who had higher integrity, people who had bigger dreams, people who did not tolerate bullshit or excuses. You know what they started doing? And these are people or friends of mine. They'd call me out and say, "Hey, what's up, bro? Like, what are you doing here? You know, like you're fucking up, and this is what you need to do to fix it." Or you may want to go look in the mirror before you start pointing fingers at someone else in this situation. Mm-hmm. And I found that the people who were the reds and the yellows, for the most part, aren't willing to have those tough conversations with you because it's too uncomfortable even for them.
Interesting. Yeah, the red and yellows I've seen in a lot of people's circles are the ones that actually are enamoring the person for being an entrepreneur, right? Where they're like, "Oh my God, you're so awesome, you're so successful, you're so X, Y, and Z." And I don't want that. I want people who are going to kick me in the dick and be like, "Hey, you're good, but you could be better."
Yeah.
You know, and I've been that person. You know, I'm only 29 years old. I've probably come across about $2 million in my life over the course of the last 10 years. And it's good money, but it's like, it's not really life changing. You know what I mean? Like after 10 years, it's about 200 grand a year. And so it's like, I mean, it's good, you know, it's better than most, but at the same time, when you're running a business, like we talked about, that's like 70 G's a year, you know, after expenses and taxes, like 60, 70 grand a year. So it's really not that much. It's above average, but it's not that much.
That's one of the main reasons that I wound up exiting my company in New York and moving to Texas. Right. It's like I spent 11 years building a GPS tracking and dash camera installation company. We were doing anywhere from $1 to $1.4 million a year gross sales. Right. I had a business partner, 50-50. We both took home on average $250 a year, you know, after taxes cleared and whatnot. So we pulled home good money from the business. We had a solid team of people who were working for us. But when I started stepping back and evaluating it, I was like, the amount of work that goes in here, the squeeze isn't worth the juice that's coming out on the other side.
Yep.
Right. And when I started telling people like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm actually getting out of this company. I don't want to be here anymore. These are my reasons." I had a lot of people who were like, "Are you crazy? Like you've got this business. You've had it for 11 years. You make really good money. You've got 2 cars in a driveway. You've got a house on a corner with a white vinyl picket fence. And like you've got the perfect American dream." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool. I understand that. And from the outside looking in, for some people, this is the dream, but this isn't my dream." To me,
100%.
Right. And like one of my core values is I refuse to be average. Okay. And when I looked at what I had built over the course of that 11 years I was in that company, when I took that step back, I was like, "Oh, fuck, this is average." It wasn't anything spectacular. And I knew right then and there that I had 2 choices. I could go down this path and continue being average. And now I'm not in alignment with my core values, which is an even bigger problem since, you know, I'm the guy who wrote the book on core values. Right. Or I have to address this and make a major shift, major change in my life. And it's definitely going to piss some people off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing that you have to come to is like, you have to piss yourself off, right? Where it's like, get tired of your own bullshit. Like establish some core values. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't have ethics or principles. They don't really have like boundaries to live by. You know, nobody really teaches us how to have like boundaries as a person.
Yeah.
That's an important thing is like, I've been going through therapy now for some time, but like more seriously, like the last like month or two, you know, like really diving into it. I have 3 coaches. I use them all against each other to be able to figure out like what is actually making my brain tick. And a lot of that is self-deprecating, self-worth issues, right? Where it's like, I am not worthy unless I'm a billionaire. Is that a fair place to put yourself as an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. Is it a place that you can put yourself against the wall and say like, okay, well, I know where I'm at now. I know I'm at 0. I have no money and I want to be a billionaire. And so what do the numbers look like? And so trying to like wrap your brain around what entrepreneurialism is is a lot more difficult when you're doing it alone. You have to get around people who have already done it. You have to get around people who are going to kick you in the dick. It's not going to be fun. None of this is supposed to make you happy. A lot of guys, and honestly, like, I think the entrepreneurial world is probably filled with more males than there are females, I'm pretty sure, statistically. But most people can't get out of their own way and say, I don't want to be happy. I want to be proud.
Mm.
I don't want to be happy. Happiness is fleeting. I'm happy when I go to Disney World. I want to be proud of my accomplishments. I want somebody to look at me and revere me for what I've accomplished. And a lot of people just really don't accomplish anything anymore. And they think that like this financial success and the house and the picket fence and the dogs and the birds and the cats and all this other shit is supposed to give you some kind of like fulfillment. Yet we never really actually give ourselves fulfillment. We never actually build that inside of ourselves before the money comes. And so for like a lot of these guys that I talk to, they're like, hey man, I have $10 million, but my daughter doesn't want to be in my life anymore. How do I get my daughter back in my life? Like, well, first and foremost, I'm 29 years old and you're 45. And so that is a question you should have asked probably 15 years ago before she turned into an adult.
Yeah.
So start there and go back to like step one. You know, a lot of people skip steps. They get out of high school and they want to go have sex and they want to go get the baddest bitch on the block, right? And then they get her and then they impregnate her. And then they're in this position now where it's like, well, I'm stuck with this person. And as a morality, I have to look at this as a man and say, do I leave or do I stay? Yeah. This was never supposed to happen in the first place. I never should have skipped this step. I never should have put my sexual creativity in place of being able to fulfill myself first. And like a lot of us, we're never taught how to have relationships with ourselves. We're never taught how to have boundaries with ourselves. We're never taught how to have any of these things with ourselves. So when we jump into something as difficult as entrepreneurialism, it becomes this overwhelming monster where it's like, I'd just rather get back to my 9 to 5 and just be a blue collar worker again, because at least I make $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? And so that's where that comes from, where it's like that state of average. You have to be able to put yourself in almost a God complex. You have to be like, I am above you all. You get to eat from my table now. And I am welcoming you to my table to eat from my table. But I'm not doing it from a narcissistic level. I'm doing it from a value and abundance level, where it's like there is enough for everybody. Look around you. Look around you, man. How much money have we given to Ukraine in the last year? How much money? How much money? $12 billion. Yet we are taking away government subsidized EBT food stamps. For what reason? It is literally the lowest totem pole as far as taxes go. It is literally the lowest as far as EBT is concerned. It costs us nothing to pay for food. Yet we're taking it away, but giving more money away. Explain that to me, right? And so we have to look at ourselves from a place of the mirror, where it's like, you're fat because you're fat. It's not because of anybody else's fault, man. You got to stop putting the fucking food in your mouth and go to the gym for once. Quit saying you're busy. We're all busy.
Yeah. Also,
there's people out here that are running 3, 4, 5, 6 companies and they're still in shape. Like they have the same 24 hours you have. What are you talking about? You're busy.
Yeah, man. Look, I'll say a couple things here. Good for you for taking care of yourself from a mental perspective, even at a young age, right? Self-worth issues will continue to compound if you don't address them, right? And I know that for a fact because I've dealt with it, right? Like I'll be 44 in a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it is. October 8th is my birthday coming up.
You spring chicken, you.
Yeah, I know. All the grays, real fucking spring chicken these days. But I was 43 years old before I actually addressed that. So, and I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast yet. I'll give you my version of it, right? This past April, I went out west and did a 2-day psychedelic journey. And it's, for those who haven't researched it, checked it out, like go ahead, go down the rabbit hole over there and see what the fuck you run into, because it's pretty wild. It wasn't something that I just said, hey, one day I wake up, I'm going to go do some drugs. Like I didn't take that approach. I went and I researched it. I watched a ton of videos, Netflix specials, just internet research, speaking to other friends and people who I look up to who've been through that as well. And I the more I explored, the more I learned, the more interested I became. And I said, okay, cool. I think this is something that could probably help me. And I went into this with certain intentions and expectations. And when you get there, it tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. It's kind of funny like that. So going into this, night one, you have to fast before you go into it, by the way. So I fasted, get in hours deep into this. Finally get to a point late in the evening where they're giving me some food, and it's like real plain, like chicken broth and like nothing. It's real clean eating while you're there. And this woman who's the facilitator I'm working with, she asked me a question as I'm like taking a sip of this food. And it had something to do, or the question was, what I think about, or how do I value my self-worth? And I immediately got nauseous, stood up, hustled my ass over to the bathroom, and puked my guts up. And I'm not really one who was ever a puker. Like even when I got like sick, like I even back in the day when I was a drinker, like I just wasn't my thing. Like I'm not one who pukes very often. And I have a couple times in my life. I think we all have, right? But it was very different. It wasn't like I was getting all of this disgusting sickness or E. coli out of my fucking guts. It was a very short, like almost like I don't know, like hitting the gas pedal on a really super high end, high revving V8 or V12 engine where you put it to the floor, it's like, and then it was done like super fast. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I get up, I clean myself up, brush my teeth, I come out. And she asked me, she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, actually, I feel a lot better. And she goes, okay, cool. So the night ends, go to bed, wake up the next morning, we're at breakfast, again, eating some clean food. And now we're having a conversation in a very sober state. And this woman who facilitated, she's got pages of notes through all these conversations that we're having at the time I'm there. And she brings up the topic, like, want to talk about last night? I go, I guess so. Like, we're here. That's what I'm here for. So she's like, what you experienced is what we call a purge. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, there was something deep inside of your body that your body was holding on to, something that was negative and not good for you. And when I talked about the self-worth, it triggered it and your body went and purged it. So moving forward, you should have little to no issues with your self-worth. Okay. Cool. Go back in. Day 2, we're back into the medicine at this point. And I'm sitting there and like you get some crazy visuals and you see some really cool things. And it's a really beautiful experience for those who haven't done it before. And I just for the record, like I was never a person growing up who wanted to or had any interest whatsoever in any kind of drug.
Right.
Like, if anything, I'd go and drink with my buddies, but I didn't want any kind of drug in my body. So anyway, I get into this second day, and I'm sitting down, and I got like these crazy visuals going on, and I have like this ticker tape coming through from the right side of my head. If I close my eyes, I can see it from the right side all the way over to the left. It's like a letterboard, like you're in Times Square and they got like, the ticker tape just running across the monitors. And it says, you are enough, you are enough, you are enough, you are enough the whole time. I was like, holy shit. So this whole thing, I go in there and I was in there to work on some other issues I was dealing with at the time. And yet it came in and helped me with some self-worth issues that I've had. And I've probably, pushed down and suppressed for decades of my life. And here I am, 43 years of age, going into this facility, and whoop, there it is. 2 days later, it's fucking fixed.
Yep.
So it's pretty wild. But yeah, look, that's the intense way of doing it. If you can grab it earlier on in life and handle it and deal with it, I'm sure it will kind of circumvent a lot of bullshit issues I've had to deal with, going through life.
1000%, man. I think the biggest thing for me is like when it comes to self-worth, I want to be a rescuer in a lot of people's lives. I want to be able to be the person that like provides the solution to all problems, right? Like that God complex again, where it's like, if I was omniscient, if I was all knowing and I knew everything, what would be the answer to this? And it's taken me a long time to get to the point to where it's like 8-year-old Donavin was watching my parents argue all damn day, even though I know they loved each other. They struggled financially. They lived in the trailer park. They couldn't afford the fancy, shiny, whatever, the vinyl picket fence and the house on the corner and the 2 cars in the driveway and all this other stuff. They couldn't afford those things. They were lucky if they were able to eat, right? And they also had struggled with a lot of stuff in their previous history before I even became a thing, like before I was a human. So 8-year-old Donovan is sitting there watching my parents argue, and I'm a chubby little kid, right? Obese, I would say. And a lot of it is predicated on the fact that my family is not able to provide themselves with correct nutrition. So the options that are available to me are Cheetos, chips, pop, whatever, right? Whatever's in the house. And there was no restrictions. And so naturally, I became an obese little kid, and naturally, still as that rescuer, I wanted to be with girls. I had this girl that I was really enamored over for basically like 4 years, like when I was a young kid. I would wear suits and go get her flowers and show up with chocolates and try to buy her love any fucking way possible. And she told me one day, she goes, "I'll never be with you." And I said, "Why not?" And she goes, "Because you're chubby." I was like, whoa. So after that, I started creating this who will I become kind of person. And I started with exercise. I was like, why didn't my parents ever show me how to exercise? Like, why is my dad 300 pounds overweight and a type 2 diabetic? Like why do we do these things? Why isn't anybody in my family in shape? Why is everybody out of shape? Right. And so like when you look at that mentally, everybody's out of shape mentally. And so you have to stop the issue as soon as humanly possible. Good on you for doing it at 42. But I should have did this back when I had money. I should have did this back when I was 20 years old before my mom passed away. I was 21 years old when I held my mom in my arms when she died. I literally held her until she took her last breath. And so when you look at things like that, it really, resonates with you, number one, on a earth level, whereas I've experienced a lot of death. And when people experience something that is similar to death, not necessarily death, but like, let's say they lose a finger, right? That is a death, that you're losing something. And so that trauma compiles, and that trauma we suppress and push down. And eventually we want this connection with whoever your higher power is. We want this connection with that, whatever it is, outside of us, outside of our family, outside of meaning of life and fulfillment and purpose and money and all the bullshit, right? All of this stuff that we use as like a fake facade of a mask that we put on to pretend that we're really not as bad off as we think we are. And so like when we get to the end of our life and we're looking God in the eyes and he says, "Did you fulfill the duty that you were set out to fulfill?" And we say, "No," we get a kick in the ass and get sent back. He's like, "Well, go try again, bro." And I think that happens often in life. When people go through divorce or alcoholism or drug abuse or sexual abuse or just hurting themselves in a masochistic way or being a sadist to others or whatever the case may be, we're looking for that connection to God in the end of it all. And what that means for us is fulfilling and healing that child that was abused or was put in a position that was lesser than what it should have been. And so for me, when I looked at that, it was like, wow, I've had a hard life. I've been through a lot. I was homeless at one point with my father, living in a car, sharing a burger between each other. I've held my mom in my arms as she died. I've been through like proposing to somebody and then she tells me no, right? Like I've had the rejection more often than most people in history, honestly. Like I put myself in this position where rejection is a thing that I welcome. I'm a door-to-door salesman. I welcome rejection. I've been doing door-to-door for like 8 years. I love it. I teach it. I am enamored by it. It's amazing that I can go knock on a door and there's a gold bar behind it. And they're like, "Hey, do you want this gold? I have too much of it." And I'm like, "Absolutely. I would love some gold," right? That's what I'm here for. And a lot of people, they struggle with just even opening up the car door because in their brain, their parents, they hear that knock on the door when they're a kid and they go, "What the fuck is this? Hold on," right? And they're like, wow, like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be in this position where people are yelling and like being angry. And I'm going to avoid confrontation at all costs. And I now welcome that. I welcome it with open arms. I look at it as going to war in life. I really believe, honestly, like I didn't think we were going to get to this in this conversation, but I honestly believe in life on this earth, you're basically given the decision to live in hell or heaven. Heaven and hell doesn't exist outside of the afterlife. It's here. It's now. You're experiencing it. You get to live in hell if you want to.
Yeah,
for sure. I can show you where it exists. Go to a Big Bear liquor store. I know where it lives, right? And so go find it. You want to go to hell? Be my guest. You're welcome to, right? But there's also heaven. Go to a soup kitchen and give back, right? Like find these people who you give them a pair of shoes and it changes their life. That's what I'm looking for in life. That's what I started Save Our Solar for. It wasn't about saving solar at all. It was about saving the planet. I look at the planet and I see all this solar out there. In America, it's 4% penetration. In Germany, it's 67%.
Wow, it's massive.
We haven't even touched it in America.
Yeah,
it's an infantile state.
So Germany compared to America, when did they begin with solar?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago. I mean, they're engineers by trait for the most part, right? Like Audi, Mercedes, etc. They're engineers by trait to begin with. Very, very smart people. So when they look at renewable energy, they see that we have a problem. I was a little fly on a wall back with the capital investment company that was called Capstone Investments back they basically like maybe like 10 years ago. And they were putting together a capital fundraiser essentially for this guy who was an engineer of GE. And he was elected by the royal family in Africa to solve a problem in South Korea. They have this massive 6 mile wide, 6 mile deep hole filled with electronic waste, VCRs, blenders, radios from like forever, right? Like this stuff has been around now for 100 years. And so like you think about like all of the consumerism across the world, and then all of that shit gets sent over and just dumped in a hole. And it's causing like environmental issues right now. It's like literally killing like animals and polluting water and killing trees. And like they're seeing it's a really big deal, right? And so they're basically trying to create a fund where I think they already have, I'm pretty sure you can probably Google it. But they're creating this fundraiser to be able to create this massive like melting thing where they just shovel all of the electronic waste into this combustion melting tank, and they capture the syngas to be able to produce an energy. They melt off the plastics and any metals that they could possibly use to recycle and build hospitals and schools with. And they also use the precious metals from all of the electronics to be able to pay for all of it. And so it's a pretty incredible thing that they're doing out there. But yeah, that's what I started Save Our Solar for, is like, this isn't an America thing. This is a global thing. This is way beyond Donavin. This is way beyond a company. This is way beyond anything outside of my imagination. And that scares the shit out of me. But I also have mentors around me like Grant Cardone who tell me to go buy a jet so I can fly to different countries and preach this message with a translator. Yeah. Like literally people that are billionaires that are like, dude, you need to go preach this to people. And that's why I'm on this podcast right now. It's like Save Our Solar is a mission to change the standard of solar. People in roofing, they fucking hate solar, bro. Like the reason why people in roofing hate solar is because they can't trust a single soul. Like there's nobody in the industry where they can take their 20-year company like Steve at CMR and attach it to an installer and be like, cool, now we're in solar. It doesn't exist like that, right? Like he's not going to risk his 25-year-old company on a 5-year-old company that has Chapter 11 built into their literal 5-year business plan. Yeah,
yeah. What do you think is the biggest pain point between roofers and solar?
Good question. I would say continuity. I would say a lot of it is just, a compilation of everything: communication, operations, process, procedures, the wherewithal. Solar hasn't been around very long. Here in America, it's still in an infantile state. We don't even have fingernails yet.
Yeah.
My newborn son, who's hopefully, I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet, but hopefully it's a son. But my newborn child that's inside of my wife right now is actually older than solar. 9 weeks. That's about how far along she is. And that's about where solar's at. It's about 7, 8 weeks. It's about the size of a cherry, about that big. Yeah. And there are billionaires in solar. It's a $172 billion industry that roofers do not want to touch.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Uncomfortable, new.
Yep.
They don't understand it. They don't see the value, or the perception of value is not there for them yet. It's not normal. It's not common. It's not traditionally accepted by the roofing community probably at this point. Shit, it's probably not even fully accepted by the homeowner community at this point, in my opinion.
It's not even accepted fully by the solar community yet, bro, to be honest with you. There's a lot of guys in solar who are like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm going to sell a couple accounts a year and make my 60 grand a year, but I don't think I'm going to push in 100 accounts a month.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make me feel good when I have 50 accounts that go upside down because they didn't reach what's called PTO, permission to operate. They didn't get their system turned on. Like now I have to go see these people in Walmart and figure out their problems, and I'm not making any more money off of solving their problems, right? And that's why a lot of people don't get into operational maintenance like I did. Like operational maintenance just doesn't pay as much as the solar projects that are brand new do. I can go make 10, 15, 20 grand on a brand new solar sale, or I can go make $300 on an operational maintenance sale, right? Like, which would I rather do? It's the same amount of effort almost. Not really, in my opinion, but you could sell 10, 15, 20 solar maintenance accounts in a day and you're making $6 grand a day, so it's like, it's all virtual work too, so like That's the main thing, man. A lot of people, they get in their way. They're overwhelmed by the extremities. They need a voice of reason. I do feel that I am one of the most intelligent, if not the most intelligent, next to Jake Hess in regards to solar, just because of my network.
Yeah.
If I don't know, I know who knows, and I have their number in my phone.
Yeah, it's powerful. Jake Hess is a good dude, by the way. Speaking of roofing and Jake Hess, Jen Silver, who's big in the roofing space, she invited me to speak at her event in Utah.
Hell yeah.
This past February. And I was in there. I spoke, I think early in the morning on the first day. And later in the afternoon, Jake Hess goes up there. I'd never met him. He went up there and just dropped the knowledge. And him and I, we chatted a good amount afterwards and kind of connected. And just a solid dude. And he's very accomplished and doing some really big things for the industry. So Jake Hess, if you ever hear this and listen, man, just know that we both appreciate you.
Yeah, man. It's actually funny. Jake and I are probably closer in the industry than anybody else that I think I'm probably close to, minus like my business partner maybe. But even then, I think Jake and I still probably have a closer, intimate, personal relationship between him and I than anybody else that I know in the industry. And there was a point in time where I was really struggling financially just with the solar roller coaster. You know what I mean? Like sell a deal cancels, got to pay bills, etc. Right. And so like I hit Jake up and I called him at like 6, 7 o'clock at night. And I said, "Hey, Jake, I'm getting out, bro." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm getting out of the industry." I said, I'm not going to do solar anymore. I said, "I'm going to move on." And he goes, "You can't." He goes, "I'm not going to let you." He goes, I'm not going to let you get out of the industry." He goes, "You can't get out." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We need you, bro." He's like, we need people like you." He goes, "I can't do it all by myself." He's like, I need you. And it's giving me chills talking about it now, man. And I've talked about it several times now, and it's now coming full circle where it's like, I've had to struggle so much in this industry over the course of 5 years where like, I'm taking those depression showers where I'm sitting on the bottom of the bathtub, just letting the fucking water hit me. Just like, how the fuck am I going to figure this out? Like just trying to like wrap my brain around how to become the person I want to become. And how to do that for not only myself, but for my family, my daughter, my father, my mother who passed away, like everybody that became before me and after me, my forefathers that never could, and my forefathers that wish they were me, right? Like every single person that comes in my lineage, bro, like my last name is Kinser. There's only 10,000 of us on planet Earth. Most of them are farmers and teachers, and they're about to die. I am the last male in my family who was able to replicate to carry on the lineage.
Yeah.
Imagine that weight on your shoulders, right? And so that's where I'm at with it, is like my legacy is more important than my life. And I'm willing to sacrifice my life to build my legacy.
It's powerful. It's powerful. Let's talk about the book.
Yeah. The Billionaire Network, bro. That's exactly why I'm in the position that I'm in now. I was like, I have this network of people. They have billions of dollars. Like I talk to billionaires. I talk to people that are sent to millionaires. How do I get value out of them, right? Well, first, you can't just straight up ask for value. You have to build that relationship to begin with. You have to be somebody that is worthy of being in a relationship with. I believe in alchemy. I believe that you can take a base metal and turn it into gold. They have done it before. Now, it takes a lot of base metal to make a little bit of gold. It takes about $2 quadrillion to make 1 ounce of gold out of base metal. I don't know if you knew that or not. $2 quadrillion. I don't even know if Saudi money has that kind of money. To make an ounce of gold, right?
Yeah.
Probably easier to just go like get some slaves and mine it out of the ground in Africa, probably.
Absolutely.
And so like when you look at that alchemy wise, you have to be gold in order to receive gold. So that's where that book stemmed from, is like the Billionaire Network. People ask me, they're like, "Are you a billionaire?" And I'm like, absolutely not. But I am in the same regard. I have 1 billion minutes worth of time. I'm under 30 years old. I have 1 billion more minutes to live. Why don't you look at that? Why isn't time more important to you? Time is our most precious asset. If the only thing that you could not buy is time, why do you waste it?
Yeah.
Why do you look at your life and see yourself at 55 years old and then look back on 55 years and say, well, I'm pretty much dead. Even though you're like halfway through life, you got like another 40 years to go.
Yeah.
Why do you give up after only 5 decades?
Because that's what society tells us to do. That's why. I'm not saying I agree with it. Right. And clearly
I don't even know if society tells us that's what we should do. I think society perpetuates it on an average scale because it's easier to do that than it is to become something.
Yes. And I think it's also indoctrinated into us in other areas as well. Like you go into the school system, it's indoctrinated from day one. You go into the workforce, your traditional job, you show up as, you know, a factory worker or an employee, corporate America. That shit is indoctrinated in you. Oh, you have to work until you're 55 or 65 years old, and then you can retire and have all the fun. But until that point, you got 2 weeks off every year. Have at it.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's the thing too, is like that only exists in America.
Mhm.
And most Americans, they can't get outside of America. You know what I mean? Like they have no knowledge outside of America. When you look at like Cuba,
Yep.
and a surgeon makes $600 a month to be a brain doctor, it resonates with you pretty heavy when it's like, wow, a pound of pork shoulder in Cuba is $16.
Yeah.
Do the math.
Mm-hmm.
That's like damn near, what is that, 10%, 20% of your monthly income just to eat some carnitas?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Why have so much abundance? We have so much stuff in America. Why can't we give more away?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we do more? Right. And so that's where I'm at with it, is like, after all of this, after Save Our Solar is at the point to where I feel that it is my duty to leave it. Similar to like your experience with your 11-year-old company, when it is my duty to carry on and move on to the next thing where my destiny, my prophecy is fulfilled, it is to take over the American education system, similar to JP Morgan Chase, where he had an evil outlook in regards to what he was trying to achieve. And I believe that we are as good of a country as we are because of him. A lot of people see it as evil. A lot of people think that evil and righteousness or whatever cannot coincidentally exist at the same time. But I believe that is what yin and yang is. You can't have one without the other. Yeah. I cannot drive my Prius on a road without somebody paving that road for me. So I am very grateful for the blue collar workers. My mother, my father were blue collar workers. They built bridges and roads that I drive on every day. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to that, I give grace every single time I see that bridge, that road. Every time I see that my parents' blood, sweat, and tears were put on that road, yeah, I know that I'm grateful for being able to drop. I know that I have been put here to be able to have grace. And so like for that, I think a lot of people can't get out of their way with that. They can't give gratitude towards things that are just very like above them, you know, or even below them. A lot of people, they don't see ants on an anthill. They just carry on with their day because they're worried about how they're going to pay rent next month.
Correct.
So it's hard to give grace to the ants that help, you know, essentially carry on the world as we know it. Honestly, like they're part of the food chain just like anything else, right? And so it's hard to recognize that, but that's where Save Our Solar's mission is to change the standard of solar. Mm-hmm. The standard of solar doesn't exist. Nobody has morals or ethics or principles or standards when it comes to solar, let alone their own fucking life. So it's like, I need to create a standard in solar. It's not okay for you to go to some 80-year-old lady's house and make 25 grand off of a 5 kilowatt size system. It's not okay. You're not going to be allowed to do that anymore. And I will be Thanos and I will snap my fingers and you won't exist anymore. I promise you. Yeah. Right. And so that's my standard. That is, I'm not going to budge on that.
Mm-hmm. Dude, you know, it's needed. I think a lot of industries need it too, but I agree with you. It's like, you know, some dude comes in and sees an easy sale and you got this older person who may not, you know, have all their shit together, may not have all their marbles anymore. And like, oh, let me go in there and grab the money. Like, there's just not integrity in that.
And I've had mentors previously that I actually admired and revered and like wanted to be around and like paid money to be around them. Mm-hmm. And when I had these intimate conversations, they go, if I don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for snitching on yourself. Thanks for letting me know where you stand. Because now I get to pluck you from my garden.
Yeah. You know what? That's just going back again. That's the importance of having those values and knowing what they are. Because if you don't have them, when that situation does happen, not if, I'm talking when that situation happens, because it will, you have something to throw up that situation to and say, hey, does it align with where I want to go? Does it align with what I believe in? And if it doesn't, that's your indicator right there to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's not a lot of guys too, man.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's easier said than done, you know, because oftentimes you hesitate. And I've personally hesitated with it myself in situations where it's like, hey, I see those signs over there, but I'm just not sure. Oh, there it is again. Oh, third time. I'm still not sure. I don't know. I'm still going to hang on and see if it gets better. And then it doesn't. It never has.
Well, that's the thing that I see also inside of like what we just talked about in regards to your standard. People, they look at like the $20,000, $25,000 commission check, and they're like, wow, how could that change my life?
Mm-hmm.
Then on this side, they say, how will this change the customer's life? Right? They don't look at that. They don't look at like, how will this affect them and everybody in their life and everybody in that person's life? And how does the butterfly effect take place? Right?
Yeah.
Like this one decision that I make could impact the entire world. Should I make this decision? And a lot of people don't have the continuity to be able to step back and say, this is a decision I need to make or not make. And oftentimes we do that with ourselves. We do that with our relationships. We do that with our children. We do that with our businesses. We do that with our jobs. We do that with our health. We do that with everything. You know, we look for, like I said, we start looking for that connection and we find it in the bottom of a bottle or in a pill. Or for me, I'm a huge cannabis enthusiast. I love cannabis, right?
Yep.
But I did smoke my last blunt 4 days ago and I threw away all my paraphernalia. Why? Well, I need to look at the connection. Cannabis controls me. It allows me to say, I enjoy life more when I am high. Why don't I enjoy life when I'm not?
Right.
That's an interesting question. Like, it makes me happy when I'm inebriated.
Yep.
But it causes me to have internal pain and conflict with myself. So am I happy, right? So I start looking at that, and I'm big on NLP, neuro linguistic programming, right? The neural linguistics, the brain language, the patterns, the beliefs that we have, the thoughts that we create, the premonitions that we perceive, the bias that we add to our overall absurdities, our assumptions, right? If you assume, you're making an ass out of me and you, and so your bias is what is causing you to look like an ass. And so when we add those in, the neurological linguistic programming that we say we feel better when I'm inebriated, that comes from a long lineage of people who were inebriated.
Right.
That is a natural chemical imbalance inside of your body that you have to address and understand. And you can't do that without money. You have to make money first, right? Like you have to figure out like, how much do I need? It's like, if you've ever watched Breaking Bad, Heisenberg is sitting in the car with Jesse, and they just saw Tuco punch his cousin to death. For what? Nobody knows, right? Mostly just from like a drug craze. And they're sitting there, and Heisenberg says 1,253,500, whatever, right? He goes, that's how much I need to get out. We all know Heisenberg makes a lot more than $1 million at the end of the TV show. And he never gets out, right? And so that's the thing, is like a lot of people look at that and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, did you get enough? Did you eat enough? Did you have enough money? Did you have enough sex? Were you around people enough that gave you enough admiration that you now feel validated as yourself? Can you answer those questions? They're really hard questions to answer, and I'm not here to answer them for you. But there always is that one door, right? That one door is transparent. And we all start behind this door, and the door isn't locked. You can walk through it whenever the hell you want. It's open. But if you walk through it and you're not ready to walk through it, you will be punished. You have to go back to that first door. And that's what you were talking about, that purge, where it's like, what is it? Like, I've made $1 billion. I have 10 kids. I've had 3 wives. I've had 10 businesses and 17 Rolls Royces and 13 mansions, and I give away $1 billion a year. Like, why am I not fulfilled? Right? It's because you walked through the door too soon. You skip steps. Got to go back.
We see it in business building all the time too. It's like, hey, you start the business, it's a startup. You get a couple pieces of software in place. Maybe you get some team members to start. You start knocking doors. You start selling some shit, and boom, you're in the game, bro. Like, shit's moving, but you skipped over the foundational work. You never took time. You never took time to establish the core values, the mission statement, the purpose of the company. You didn't take time to craft the culture into something that you wanted it to be, and then all of a sudden you've got this fucking monster that literally controls you. And it's not supposed to be that way.
It could be anything, you know, it could be money, you know, you could try to like pay for everything to fill the hole, right? Like, I'm a big fan of Andrew Tate. He was my mentor right before he actually got famous. I met him in Miami down at the gym, and just happened to run into him. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like trying to find him or anything like that. And he was having a conversation with me, and a lot of what we were talking about now resonates really heavy with me, because back when I met him, he was still boozing pretty heavy. He was still like drinking really heavy with Tristan and stuff. And, you know, I don't want to talk like I know these guys, like they're my best friends or anything like that. But I got an inkling that he had something deeper inside of him that he had to heal, you know. And him and I talked about relationships and marriage and children. And I didn't even know he had kids. I didn't even know he had a daughter. I don't even think he did when I met him, I'm pretty sure. But now he does. And you see that he's not posting online about boozing anymore. He's talking about Islam, and he's talking about God, and he's talking about love. And now he's starting to talk about relationships and marriage and all these different things, where it's like, he almost is that like evil, but nice pastor, right? Where it's like, bring them in with the money and then lead them to God. Right. And so that's really interesting to look at, because business and religion go coincidingly hand in hand. One of my mentors, Myron Golden, he literally teaches from the Bible. Like, he teaches business principles from the Bible. Right. And so it's like, when I look at guys like that, from trash man to cash man is what he refers himself as, that in itself, the marriage that he has with his wife, the relationship he has with his kids, the relationship he has with himself, the direction where he knows he is going, where he is able to now be in that seventh door and start talking to God directly, where he's asking God questions directly, because he has already been gifted and graced the other doors. He's been allowed into those other doors, right? Whereas the first one is yourself. The second one is your sexual creativity, your family and your children. The third one is everybody around you, your inner circle. Like we talked about, that red light, green light, stoplight. Like, you have to look at that and understand that some people are a red light, but the red light isn't always going to be red. And you have to be patient. You have to wait and see if it's going to turn green. And when it does turn green, you can allow this person back into your circle, but you do have to keep them at arm's length. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's where I'm at with it, is like with people in general, I don't try to judge. I try to be as non-judgmental as possible. And if I do find myself judging somebody mentally, I try to look at it myself and say, hey, why am I projecting this onto this person?
Yeah. Or what about this person is triggering the fuck out of me?
Yeah, like why am I having these negative thoughts, these negative premonitions about this person that I don't even know, right? Where it's like they're fat, or they're poor, or they're lazy, or they're jumping all around from business to business, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, you were that person. If you were God, and I was talking to God right now, and you said, Donovan, do you feel like you were needing to jump around from business to business to find what it is that is your passion? 1,000,000%. No doubt about it. Like, I'm here now, right? Like, thank you for showing me, because I needed that. I had to go through that in order to get to where I'm at. Yeah. And I'm not even there yet, bro. Like, I got so much longer. I mean, honestly, based on my high level of income and advances in science and technology, there's no doubt that I can't live to be 100, 125, right? Like, it's literally a reality now, bro. We got callers that will like translate what a dog is saying. Like, this shit's becoming a reality. And so, like, when I look at that, I have to be good to people. Yeah. My Billionaire Network book is literally about being good to people and yourself. You have to be gold before you get gold. And that's how you produce a billionaire network. But overall, I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man. I absolutely love this. And it gives me a lot of ability to look internal and listen to the words that I speak and try to fulfill that prophecy and figure out what that means for myself, you know. And I am very much grateful and value people like you on the journey.
Yeah, man. It's been great talking to you. And I'm glad and I'm proud of you for going in there and doing the inner work, because a lot of people are unwilling to do it. So
it fucking sucks, dude. It's
not fun. It is not fun at all. But I'm telling you right now, like you've got to do it. And if you put it off, it just gets harder as you get older, in my opinion.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, I mean, you can't teach an old dog new tricks is what they say, right? And so like you have to do the work, bro. When you're getting to 60, 70, 80 years old, you're not going to have any energy to fix this shit. Yep. You're going to be so far gone. And yeah, I mean, that's the facts.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Good old podcast exit here. Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Where can we find a book?
Facebook. That's where I'm at. Facebook. The Book of Faces. Yeah, man. The Book of Faces. I love Facebook. Facebook has been the number one thing for me to create all of what is around me. And so I very much am grateful for Mark Zuckerberg for putting the platform out and stealing it from the guy at Harvard. Shout out to Mark Zuckerberg. But yeah, man, overall, just, you know, when you're looking to build a strong base of people, you want to find the ones that own businesses, and you want to have conversations with those people and just try to be as vulnerable as possible. I see vulnerability as a superpower. You know, the other day, about like 5-6 days ago, I texted my business partner and I said, hey man, like I'm going through it today, bro. Like my coach kicked me in the nuts, and I was like, I legit was crying 7-8 times during that day because it was so powerful. It was so moving. and it's like, why? I can't stop my eyes from like the purge is coming. You know what I mean? And that's seen in either crying or anger or throwing up or, you know, some kind of expression, right? And so that's what I say is like, get around people, get uncomfortable, be vulnerable. Read my book, of course, and read his book, of course. His book is more powerful than mine. Mine is just really like a script, a manual. It's just like, hey, do this and that and this and that. And yours is like moving, you know what I mean? And I haven't gone through it all yet, but I plan to. And then, and just find me on Facebook.
Appreciate it, man.
Cool, dude.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.